men are just so competitive. Like, men in general, there's such a lack of connection and working together because of the competition that we're raised to have, that society promotes, and that our fathers teach us when we're young. Luckily not mine, but it's just kind of a generation after generation. We're not really raised the right way. Not everybody, but I'd say the majority. And so when men kind of have an awakening, an aha moment, and their consciousness starts to expand, they have to really do all this unlearning to connect. And I think one of the biggest problems on this planet is the competition between men, because that's what creates the wars on the macro, and on the micro, the internal, and also creates shame. Men have a lot of shame, don't feel like they're good enough, they compare themselves. And instead of connecting and having a brotherhood and uplifting each other, holding each other accountable, which is a huge one, we're putting each other down and we're competing. Yep. And I think a big thing that I've seen through your Instagram videos is vulnerability, connection, intimacy. Another thing men have a real problem doing is becoming, communicative with each other and becoming truly intimate on a spiritual level, and just having a discussion and expressing our weaknesses and being vulnerable, because we're taught that we have to be stoic and strong and we never fail and not express ourselves. And that really messes up our relationships, not just with our brothers, but of course our wives, everybody in our life, because we're not actually connecting and communicating. But with men, tell me a little bit about the work you're doing.
So there's a couple of points to this. There's, first is a distinction between healthy competition and unhealthy competition, right? Healthy competition has a place, and healthy competition helps us see the parts of ourselves that we cannot see ourselves, because we struggle to see the forest through the trees often. Mm-hmm. And healthy competition can bring out the best in us, and even bring out aspects of ourselves we never knew existed. And healthy competitions needs to exist without deeper levels of judgment and shame, right? Unhealthy competition is that competition largely that we see in the world today. So first, let me come back. We shouldn't demonize competition, number one.
Yeah,
right?
There's a place for it. Yeah, I love competition. I love getting on the court playing basketball, and sports, and totally.
Yeah, and sports are an extension of our evolution, so to speak, right? Yeah. Something that's part of social psyche, right? As an example. And this unhealthy competition that we're living in, it is destructive. And it is destroying our planet in different ways, or it's contributing to the destruction of our planet, because the planet has its own natural life cycles as well, right? But it's also destroying our souls, right? Because now we're demonizing other people, we're making them wrong, we're making them bad, and now there's more segregation, which is, to your point, there's more in-group and out-group, right? That's not going to help us in any capacity. So yes, part of healing that is intimacy and connection and vulnerability, and what I call vertical vulnerability. In other words, we're not just leaking our vulnerability. We haven't gone from being, I'll use the term stoic, even though it's not the completely accurate term, but I say the word stoic and people will relate to it. Like it's we've gone from, in some circles, right, in modernity, and this is a very layered conversation. There are many reasons for this, but we've gone from being stoic and hard or firm and rigid and all of that, which is probably too extreme in some ways, to now being soft and loose and passive and meek and weak in our constitution as men in certain collective circles. Definitely. Right? So now it's just like every opportunity is an opportunity to be vulnerable. That's not healthy either.
Nope.
And so it's striking that harmony, right? And one of the ways that we do this, when you ask me directly, what are you teaching men and how are you helping them, is clearing the clutter of their past, is helping them deal with their trauma and providing a very safe space for them to unload their burdens and unleash that inner self that needs to be expressed, whatever that looks like, right? And to be met then in safe ways, not only nervous system regulation, but also non-judgment and non-shame. So those men are not shamed. That's really important as well in their expression, right? And then we start to rebuild the man from that place there. And that's an important part of, of healthy masculinity from my perspective. Mm-hmm. Another part of healthy masculinity from my perspective is resilience, and is mental fortitude and physical toughness. We're made to be physical. That doesn't mean you need to be the strongest man in the world or the fastest runner or the most agile or any of that. It just means you have to be adept in your body, right? And having that confidence in your body has such a net positive effect in so many different areas of your life, including relationships, including dating, including attraction, sexuality, but importantly, confidence over arrogance. Not arrogance, is a difference, right? Mm-hmm. And so being competent in your physicality, it matters. It really does, because it gives you a connection to self that you probably haven't had before, right? And the more that you challenge yourself in that domain, as we as men challenge ourselves in that domain, firstly, it's very natural for us because we've evolved extending the perimeter and keeping our tribes people safe and our land or our area safe, and from external threat that hundreds of thousands of years ago and millions of years ago was a very real thing. We live in a very easy world today. And this takes me back to resilience. Like, we live in from my perspective, an oversensitized, politically correct world that is removing our ability to be resilient, to practice resilience, to practice toughness and fortitude, right? And when we lose the ability to practice that, we're honestly, from my perspective, losing part of our humanness, our humanity. We are here today because our ancestors were fucking tough. I'm not talking about the tough that is oppressive or coercive or autocratic or controlling. That's a shadow behavior of unhealthy masculine power. Yeah. I'm talking about a type of toughness that knows oneself, awareness, right?
No, I got it.
That really fucking leans in when it gets difficult and says, I got this and I'm going to do my best and I may need your help. And that's a king energy to be able to say, I'm here, I'm in a leadership position for a reason, and I will consult my counsel, whoever that may be, my wife, my children, my friend, my brothers, whatever. Like, that level of autonomy and that level of trust in oneself is so critical for, I think, for the next wave of man moving forward.